Chinese sneaker brands like Anta and Li-Ning are starting to make their own path into the NBA. Thousands of players have made it to the NBA, but only a select few have had the chance to have a shoe deal. And even fewer have been blessed with their own signature shoe. Multi-year contracts with signature shoe promises with brands like Nike and Adidas have been reserved for proven NBA stars. Over the decades, players have signed endorsement deals with all sorts of brands, from airlines to fast food chains to sports brands, and it's the sneaker deals that have paid dividends for only the greatest of players. Think Kobe, Michael Jordan, and Dwayne Wade. But one of these is not like the others. Can you guess who? That's right, D-Wade. Sure, Kobe Bryant had his Adidas and Nike deals, and Jordan is now worth over $3 billion and counting, making $330 million in 2023 from sneaker royalties alone, by the way. Neither of them tapped into the Chinese market quite like D-Wade though. After joining the NBA in 2003, Dwayne Wade signed with Converse, where he released 5 sneakers, including the Wade 1, his first signature shoe. This sneaker was a popular choice for hoopers and personally one of my favorite designs from Converse basketball. The shoe takes inspiration from Sharks. A lot of Wade's game at the time was attacking the basket, and that's exactly what Sharks do, attack. The Shark inspiration is expressed through the mesh gill-like inlays featured on the upper of the shoe. The sneaker was released in a dope Miami Heat colorway and is an all-around classic when it comes to hoop shoes. So much so that Converse bet the farm on Wade and released 4 more models with him. The Wade 1.3, the 2, 3, and then the 4. The Converse Wade 4 was a disaster. Apparently, D-Wade was so dissatisfied with the shoe's design and performance that he refused to wear them on the court. Shortly after, Converse and D-Wade's partnership went south, and he signed with Jordan Brand in 2009. He was the first player to ever rock an Air Jordan flagship model on the court since Michael Jordan left the game. He was the face of Jordan Brand and seemed like things were going well, and then out of nowhere, he signed with the Chinese athletic brand Li-Ning, a move that paved the way for future NBA players to sign with brands outside of the heritage brands that are usually associated with the NBA. Think Nike, Adidas, now Under Armour, you get the point. And as groundbreaking as this was, he set the bar even higher when just 6 years later, he increased the terms of his contract to a lifetime deal. And it wasn't just that he signed with the Chinese brand when every man and his dog wanted to sign with Nike or Adidas. It was that he was signed to Jordan Brand already and moved across to Li-Ning.
不是所有人的上一秒都是总冠军或者得分王，绝对属于自己，主宰这一秒。Li-Ning.
If he would have joined Li-Ning from his first season, that's one thing. But to have a few NBA seasons under his belt with Converse and then sign with the holy grail of them all, Jordan Brand, and then sign to a lesser known brand on the other side of the world, it's a crazy move. And it's even crazier when you think about Li-Ning. Business-wise at that time, they weren't doing so well. He must have really had his convictions that it would be a success. He said that he wanted to go to a brand where he could create his own style and create a legacy like his idol, Michael Jordan. His move kind of reminds me of Michael Jordan signing with Nike. Back then, a brand like Converse couldn't promise a young Michael Jordan he'd be their #1 priority, as they already had proven superstars like Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, and Isaiah Thomas on the roster. So off he went to the lesser known brand. At the time, of course, this was Nike, but we all know how that turned out for Michael Jordan. He's a billionaire now. This was the beginning of something great for Chinese athletic brands. Li-Ning was paving the way, showing brands like Anta and Peak that it was possible. One of the big reasons that Dwayne Wade decided to sign with Li-Ning was that he would be able to start his own brand within the brand called Way of Wade. This gave him some unique advantages. For example, he could sign up-and-coming basketball players to join Way of Wade and be more involved with the whole design direction of Li-Ning's basketball program. And since partnering with Li-Ning, D-Wade has released 10 signature models. And although the Wave Wade 1 and 2 looked a little chunky and bootish, by the third model, they'd already look like they'd fit in with today's sleek low-cut style seen on a lot of the players today. As you move your way up from the Wade 4 to the Wade 9, things just keep getting more futuristic, with the 9 looking like some kind of space boot, and the 10 alarmingly similar to the Air Jordan 37. They also released some 808s, that's what they're calling these pairs of sneakers, the Dwayne Wade Way of Wade 808s. Li-Ning uses proprietary cushioning technologies such as boom and dry foam for their signature basketball lines. The shoe performs just as well as any Nike, New Balance, or Adidas model on the court today, so they're very modern and sell pretty well in China. One obvious reason Chinese sneaker brands are becoming a force in the basketball world is the size of the market. China has a huge population, the second largest in the world. Imagine if just a small fraction of those 1.4 billion people are into basketball. That's still a massive number of potential customers for basketball shoes. This giant market has attracted basketball players who see a golden opportunity to grow their brands in China. So they're teaming up with these Chinese sneaker brands to get a piece of the action. It's a smart business move. Players like Klay Thompson, Jimmy Butler, Aaron Gordon, and Andrew Wiggins have all signed with Chinese sneaker brands. Let's talk about Anta, who signed Klay Thompson to an insane 10-year deal worth $80 million before royalties. They've been quietly climbing the ranks to become a major contender in the basketball shoe market. Though it may be a new name to us here in the US, Anta is very well known in other parts of the world. They started in China back in the early 90s, and today, Anta sits as the 4th largest sporting goods company globally by market cap. They even surpassed Nike in sales in China back in 2022. This is thanks to their hyper focus on basketball. They've been partnering with NBA players recently, and it's paying off. From Klay Thompson's signature KT line to Gordon Hayward's GH series, Anta has successfully built a roster of star athletes. Even Rondo used to rock Antas back in the day. But Anta's biggest move came in 2023 when they signed superstar Kyrie Irving and also appointed him as basketball's chief creative officer. The crazy thing was Kyrie was seemingly flying high with Nike. They made 8 signature models together and had much success. And Kyrie's line with Nike was one of the best available on the market for basketball shoes. Models like the Kyrie 2, 3, and 7 are well known by hoopers for their incredible traction and comfort on the court. They also broke into the sneakerhead market with the Kyrie 5 when they did the SpongeBob pack. I remember seeing those everywhere when they dropped, and to this day I think they're still, I wouldn't say they're super popular, but they're desirable for sure. Unfortunately, all that became undone when Kyrie shared a link on Twitter that apparently contained anti-Semitic themes. It caused a huge PR headache for Nike, and shortly after, they suspended their long and successful partnership with Kyrie Irving. Kyrie spent some time after the incident courting a deal by flaunting advertising space on his feet. He was still wearing pairs of his signature line, but covered the swoosh with the phrase, "logo here." He was doing all kinds of crazy stuff to his Nike shoes when he was out in the court because he was still playing. It was like the middle of the season, so he was still rocking his Nike shoes. He would just cover up the Nike branding. But in the end, it was Anta who saw this and ultimately signed the NBA superstar. I don't know if Kyrie has done this on purpose or not, but his first pair with Anta featured a logo on the tongue that is remarkably similar to his logo with Nike. Possibly another dig at the brand who wanted to break ties? I will say this though, the sneaker looks like an extension of the Nike line. It could have easily been a Kyrie 9 or a Kyrie 10, in my opinion. I guess that kind of design direction was already working for him, so he brought it over in the most legal way they could. Anyways, there's something to be said about the caliber of players these brands are able to sign nowadays. Peak, a Chinese sportswear brand, has strategically positioned itself as a reliable home for some of the league's lesser-known stars. Guys like Andrew Wiggins and Clippers legend Lou Williams have both had their own signature models with Peak, something that wouldn't be possible with the traditional heritage shoe brands that we see on the court. Now, I of course can't talk about Chinese influence in the NBA without mentioning the Great Wall of China himself, Yao Ming. The 7-foot 6-inch Hall of Famer joined the Houston Rockets from the Shanghai Sharks as a #1 pick back in 2002. At the time, there weren't many players making the jump from China's CBA to the NBA. If you remember, Yao Ming just played for the love of the game. He was a very fair player and was a cultural ambassador for his home country. He raised millions for charities across both countries, United States and China. He was a giant of the game, both in height and skill, and earned 8 NBA All-Star selections in the 8 seasons that he played. I doubt there are many players, if any, that could boast that sort of statistic. All-Star, every season that he played. Think about that. His success on the court helped popularize the game in China, and from that, helped it develop into the bustling sneaker market as we know it today, creating a bridge for future players to cross with ease. Let's talk about his sneaker journey for a second. He first signed with Nike and then eventually went to Reebok. At the beginning of his signing with Reebok, they made him a PE of the Reebok question, and amazingly, in a full circle moment, many years later, he was inducted into the Hall of Fame with Allen Iverson himself.
When I heard that I would be the first speaker in tonight, I think maybe somebody made a mistake. Don't laugh, because I think this spot belonged to great Allen Iverson. You know why? Because I need more practice than him.
Around the same time that Yao joined the NBA, the Chinese market began booming as it became more integrated into the global economy, and he would not just be a Chinese player in the NBA, but a superstar, a global phenomenon. To have a Chinese player line up against the likes of Shaquille O'Neal and apparently have over 200 million people tune in for his first game, he wasn't just lining up against one of the all-time greats, he was carrying over 1 billion people on his back. With Yao cementing a connection between his home country and the NBA, they began sending teams on annual basketball tours across China. This would invariably begin with mad crowds at meet and greets, lines outside to get into the games, and of course, plenty of photo opportunities on the Great Wall of China. With David Stern at the helm, he had his sights firmly set on globally expanding the NBA, penning a deal with the Chinese Basketball Association, also known as the CBA. David Stern agreed to transfer all of the NBA's intellectual properties to NBA China.
With our partnership with Yao and our previously announced partnership with the CBA to extend that for 3 more years to develop coaches and players, we believe that the future of basketball in China is very, very bright. And anything we can learn from China, from Yao about China, is important to us.
It was a smart move by David Stern, as the NBA would increase its revenue significantly, and as you can imagine, it just went crazy over there. China is a huge market for basketball, and NBA players grew to understand the money that could be made there, with some players eventually moving across to play in the Chinese Basketball Association, diversifying their income with TV appearances and merchandise. One of those business-savvy players was Shaq, who, in the later years of his career, went over to Li-Ning thanks to David Stern's wise decision and Yao Ming's massive influence on basketball in China. A lot of people don't know this, but he was with Li-Ning for the last 5 years of his career. And as for modern NBA guys, Jimmy Butler has made Li-Ning his home. Jimmy spent some time bouncing around between shoe sponsors, going from Adidas to Jordan brand, where he reportedly took a 75% pay cut just to play for Air Jordan. But he never got a signature model, and they wasted no time in releasing a signature model over at Li-Ning, the Li-Ning JB1. And this year, they just released it, the JB2. It's highly unlikely that these Chinese basketball shoe brands are gonna lead the pack in the United States against brands like, giants like Nike, Adidas, and New Balance. But their growth has been phenomenal, and it just shows the rate at which Chinese basketball culture is growing. And of course, the NBA has had the most influence, but we have to acknowledge the Chinese Basketball Association, which for overseas hoopers is the next best thing to the NBA. Legends like Stephon Marbury and Tracy McGrady were able to make a decent living playing out there. But who knows what's next for Anta, Li-Ning, Peak, and all the other up-and-coming Chinese athletic brands. One thing is for sure though, they're here to stay. And speaking of staying, why don't you stick around for another one of our videos? If you like this one, go ahead and click on that. If you gotta go, please consider subscribing to the channel before you peace out. I would appreciate that. And I'm gonna peace out now too, guys. I appreciate you. If you're sticking around, I'll see you in that video. If not, peace.